Greetings everyone, what's up? Evan here back again. Today I'm going to be bringing you a $500 gaming PC computer build based around the Intel Skylake architecture. I've previously done different price points within these same realms and these same characteristics. I've done a $400 build, I've done a $350 build, and I've done a $550 build. I'll link those all in the video, either off to the right or in the description below. So basically what I've built here today is I've built a $500 gaming PC computer build based around the Intel Core i5-6400 2.7 GHz quad-core processor. And starting off with that CPU, I've added other components that will equal a nice balance and offer good price to performance, which is really the goal of all of these gaming PC builds, is the best price to performance or the best bang for your buck, so to speak. So the Intel Core i5-6400 2.7 GHz quad-core processor is currently the lowest priced and the lowest clocked of the i5 series of the new Skylake architecture from Intel. Still has great single-core performance. It has very low thermals. It has a very low wattage requirement. As you can see here, it only requires 65 watts of power. It supports DDR4 memory and is based upon the new LGA 1151 socket. Really, it's an overall great CPU. You should be able to play all your games at high to even ultra settings. And I would really recommend it for a build of this magnitude because it's any cheaper and you're going to be going with an i3, which is not really something you want to be stuck with or bottlenecked by running off of only dual core. It still has hyper-threading, but it's only a dual core processor. And at the $500 price point, I think you really should have quad core at minimum for the performance you're going to be looking for. Alright, moving on. For our motherboard, to go along with that, we have an ASRock H110N HDV Micro ATX LGA 1151 motherboard. Great little motherboard for the price. Supports DDR4 memory, obviously. It supports up to 32 gigs of memory. It has all your, really your basic needed specifications, your basic needed peripherals, and that sort of thing. You've got your PCIe slots. You've got PCIe 2 times, PCIe times 1, a standard PCIe Express, 2 RAM slots. You got your SATA ports over here off to the side, and really just the basics. Really anything you could need for a gaming PC build of this magnitude, and it comes in at a great price at $51. I would prefer to get at the $5 price point to get a full-size ATX board just to have, have 4-channel memory and have some extra PCIe slots and maybe some more SATA ports and that sort of thing. But unfortunately, the $500 price point at Skylake right now, you've got to cut corners somewhere, and this is still a great little board for the price, and I don't think you're going to be bottlenecked too much by the lack of frills or the extra options that some of the larger boards do offer. So, moving on. For memory, we've got G.Skill's Ripjaws 4 Series 8GB, 2x4 GB of DDR4 2800 memory. This memory is really great priced. It's priced at $39.99, which we've seen a drop recently in the RAM prices, so that's great. It enables us to get below that $500 price point when trying to build a gaming PC off of an i5. Also, you get 2 sticks instead of a single DIMM, so you can run it in dual channel mode, which offers extra bandwidth. And really, DDR4 is just a massive step over the previous generation DDR3 in terms of clock speed, bandwidth, and power consumption. Plus, it looks cool. It's cool looking memory. I like the heat spreaders on this style of memory myself. For storage, we have the ever-popular and ever-recurring Hitachi UltraStar 750GB, 3.5-inch, 7200 RPM internal hard drive. I think this is the 4th time now that this hard drive has appeared in my build, and I always choose it for the same exact reason. And that reason is that, really, it's priced so uniquely. It's at $34.99, and ranging in hard drives in terms of capacity from 500 gigabytes all the way up to 10 terabytes. This is one of the most inexpensive priced hard drives that you can get, even including the 500 gig hard drives. There's like 2 hard drives that are around 5200 to 5900 RPM, and then there's this hard drive which is right in the middle of all the other 500 gig drives at 7200 RPM and 750 gigabytes. I still don't know why this hard drive is priced so cheap. 1 terabyte drives are going to run you an extra $10 to $15, and a 500 gig 7200 RPM hard drive is going to run you at the same price or even $2 to $3 more. So really, it's a no-brainer. I think maybe people just don't think to search for a 750 gig hard drive because it's right in the middle, and either they aren't selling well or they're trying to liquidate this model. I don't know, but it's been the same price point for months now, and I'm still using it in builds. People are still buying it. It's got an overall high rating, so pick it up. It enables you to get that extra bit of storage space without breaking the bank, and it allows that extra wiggle room to put into either your CPU or your GPU, which is always important for a gaming PC build. Alright, moving on. The ever-famous point of contestment in every gaming PC build that I do, no matter how much supporting evidence I offer, it always seems that people either bash my methods or bash my choice or just make fun of the style in which I choose these video cards, which is kind of interesting. My previous gaming PC build that I did was the $400 gaming PC build, and what I did is, in addition to the video that I always put out, I decided to write a guide on PC Parts Picker, which is I'm a huge fan of. I obviously have an account here and everything else. So basically what I did is I wrote a full guide on PC Parts Picker. I'll either link that in the description below or whatever. I'll even link my profile if you want to check out some of the other recommendations that I've made on this forum so far and that sort of thing. And really, PC Parts Picker, it's got a great community. It's got a nice little forum behind it and stuff. But people tend to be very set in their ways. And unfortunately, that seems to be a problem in the tech community, is that people always are trying to either defend their purchase or defend their brand, and they become very biased towards one thing or the other. And what they'll do is they'll kind of try to ignore the facts or skew the facts in a way that makes them seem, unequivocally right. And that doesn't exist in the technology industry. There is no clear winner between Intel or AMD and NVIDIA. It's really, a lot of it is opinion-based. Of course, you shouldn't put a GT640 or whatever with an Intel Core i7-5000 series. That's ridiculous. Those are the undeniable truths of PC building. But if you've got, the GTX 980 Ti versus the AMD Fury X, you're talking about benchmark scores and you're talking about frames per second that are literally 5 FPS differences and benchmark differences of a couple hundreds, which is relatively nothing. Really, it comes down to personal opinion. Yes, you can find a winner in terms of raw price to performance, which is what I usually recommend on. I usually recommend AMD. But there are people that prefer the fact that NVIDIA runs quite a bit quieter and quite a bit cooler and has a vastly superior the Intel GeForce experience as opposed to the AMD Catalyst Control Game Center sort of thing. So really, it comes down to a matter of opinion, what you're looking for in a gaming PC build, and I don't like to bash people based upon what they think is more important in a gaming PC build. If you want to choose the GTX 980 over the Fury X, even though it has 3 points less FPS per dollar, go for it. That's absolutely your decision to make. Sorry, might be ranting just a little bit here, but based upon my criteria for price to performance, I chose the GTX 950 for a number of reasons. Starting off here, we're going to go ahead and view GPU Boss again. This is another thing I got torn out for. GPU Boss is a website that I am aware has quite a few biases and stuff, but I only look at the stuff that they have gathered externally. GPU Boss is a great little resource for just putting two graphics cards together in a straight comparison in a nice, interface. You can do all of this individually and come out with the same exact data by going to the different websites that they've utilized to get all of these specifications. There's no reason to knock a website for the information that it gets externally. Yes, I will knock GPU Boss because for some reason they make some really questionable decisions on their recommendations, but a lot of their recommendations are only on some of the more high-profile matchups, like the 980 Ti versus the Fury X and the R9 270 versus the 750 Ti or the 750 itself. So I don't know, it's strange, the reasons some people give for saying that you're wrong. It's strange. Anyway, basically the only two cards within my price point of around $120 to $150 were the R7 370 and the GTX 950. These are the two cards that are basically in contestment with each other at these price points, and there's a reason that I went with the 950 over the R7 370. As we can see here, they go basically blow for blow, back and forth in terms of floating point performance, texture rate versus clock speed, memory clock speed, and frame rates and that sort of thing. So these basically are going blow for blow. It's higher in some ratios for one card. You can see here AMD wins in the texture rate, floating point, shading units, texture mapping units, and memory bus. Meanwhile, NVIDIA wins in a higher clock speed, higher effective memory clock speed, turbo clock speed, memory clock speed, and frame rate for BioShock Infinite. So that's basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's basically completely even. However, scrolling down here, instead of the benchmarks that we saw in the other comparison, they've gone straight to the gaming performance. And as you can see here, the 950 outperforms the R7 370 in 2 out of 3 categories here. It has just the ever so slightest synthetic benchmark of the 8,430 versus 8,351. So that's negligible at best. You're likely not going to see a massive performance increase over synthetic benchmarks anyway. But it does show a fairly significant increase in frame rates at ultra presets for BioShock Infinite and Crysis 3. So that's one of the reasons that I decided to go with the 950. Another reason I decided to go with 950 is that Passmark has this great little utilization chart that shows price to performance based on these two different, based upon really all the graphics cards that are available right now in the market. And the 950 is ranked super, super high in this list. Basically, the first three are previous generation's graphics card. We've got the 6950, the 6970, and the 760. Those are our previous generation graphics cards, so I don't actually consider those in the running anyway. But if you take those out of the equation, the 950 is scored like first, or fourth, technically. It's super high up in the list. It's got an overall point percentage ratio of 35.21. To compare that, we've got to go down 3 steps, and the R9 270 says R7 370, which is essentially the same chip. It's got a score of 3371. Still very high up in the list, very close running, but in my opinion, I would go ahead and go with the 950 as if I was going to be building a gaming PC of this price point. Heading back to our gaming PC build now that that's over and I've explained my case, so to speak. Final part here is, in fact, the case. We've got the Rosewell R363 MBK Micro GTX mid-tower case with a 400-watt power supply. Now, I know people don't like included power supplies. I know they have a tendency to not be good. They have a tendency to, melt or explode or whatever people claim that they do. I get that. I am always trying to put a good power supply. In fact, that's one of the reasons people chewed me out for the last gaming PC build that I did, was that I included an EVGA 400-watt power supply that I guess was barely up to ATX standards. That confused me because barely standards still meets the standard. It still was ATX certified, but whatever. Anyway, this is a great little case for the price, and the reason I went with this case as opposed to trying to split the case and the price up is that for $50, you're getting a nice mid-tower case, or ATX mid-tower case, as well as the fact that Rosewell actually makes their own power supplies. You can go out and buy a standalone Rosewell power supply right out of the box without a case included. And they've got very high reviews, and so does this case. This case is a 4 out of 5 egg rating with 600 reviews, so it's tried and true. And the reason that's one of the better things is that a lot of times what companies will do is there'll be a case company that solely makes computer cases, or at least doesn't make power supplies, and then they'll outsource a super cheap Chinese manufacturer like Logisys or Raidmax or whatever, wherever those companies are made, and they'll just slap it with a white nondescript label into their thing and say that they include a 500-watt power supplies. Those are the pre-built cases of power supplies that you're going to be getting in things like, Dell and freaking Asus or whatever. The cheap Walmart pre-built systems are going to have those power supplies in it, as well as the cheap online cases that you buy that are too good to be true. The $25 case with a 500-watt power supply. That's what you want to stay away from. But given that this Rosewell does make their own power supplies, and Rosewell is including their own branded power supply with this case, you should be just fine, especially considering the fact that this build only draws about, I believe it's 240 watts. Yeah, only 240 watts of power. It's only a little bit over half. You're not going to be super taxing this thing. The GTX 950 is very efficient, as is the i5 processor, so you should be just fine in terms of using this power supply, as well as all the other components in this build. So, that's about it. The total price as the time of making this video comes out to $495.94, and I'll include the build link in the description below. Thank you for watching, everyone.